Hello, writers. Come write with me. My name is Michaela Greenwood. I create worlds for mind adventures. Welcome to my channel, Write with Michaela. I'm very excited to have you join me on my channel, so don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell so you can go on this journey with me. Today is story time, or the day of our chapter exchange. Give you a chapter, you give me a chapter. We're not gaining pounds for calories for a cookie exchange. So it's an exchange just like anything else that you exchange. If you're writing with me and you wish to exchange chapters, then send your chapter with written permission to writewithmichaela@gmail.com. I will post the email address at the end of the video and in the description below. I'm looking forward to reading your chapters. All chapters are writing prompts read on the channel, whether they are mine or another writer's work or copyright protected material, and no one may use any part in writing their own stories. This story is PG-13. Excuse me. So if you are under 13 years of age, you need parental guidance. Excuse me. This story is in its rough draft stage, just as the last stories and writing prompts we've heard. The title of this story is Elementals, and today we are reading chapter 13. If you would like to read along, then send to the email I stated earlier and request a PDF of the chapter. Make sure you are specific. Now, let's start. Elementals, chapter 13, 2 Worlds. Sarge once again went to work in the morning. When he arrived, the medium was there. He brought her in his office and she told him what she learned, but she didn't know anything about talismans. She had gone to the bookstore that specialized in oddities, but there was no help. Excuse me. Then she tried to explain to Sarge what she thought he was trying to do was to enter a different multiverse, and she didn't know how to do that. She explained that spirits and guides talked about the parallel universes, but she couldn't just go there, and she had consulted the guides, and they said she wasn't supposed to know how to change over to a parallel universe without first altering herself within herself. She concluded that even if she did that, it wouldn't help him. Sod nodded and told her he understood, and he thanked her for all she had done. He signed the form she filled out stating the time so she could get paid. She left the books on his desk. Sarge sighed, and he stood at the door to his office when a tall man entered the station. Sarge's eyes widened in surprise. He quickly told the clerk the man was there to see him, and he motioned the man back. Before he entered his office, he made a few motions to a few others, and they would stay close. Once they entered Sarge's office and Sarge closed the door, Sarge had the man sit down. The man laid a hand on top of one of the books. "Ah, good. You do know some things." He pulled his hand down to his lap. The man then asked if Sarge recognized him. Sarge did. Sarge knew he had been the wizard in the bar. He stopped himself from saying Inselbner, and he stopped himself from saying wizard. The wizard then told him his story from there. He left Selbner that night to see if he could learn the High Lord's plans for the 3 strangers. What he found instead was that the gnome's village was out of phase, but he found some tracks from the giant with his magic, and he followed them. Sarge was having a hard time with this story, so the man took a pen off Sarge's desk, changed it to a broom, and he changed it back, put the pen on his desk. It still took Sarge a few minutes to put things together. The wizard then told of his conversation with the giant and how the giant was worried about his friends, the gnomes. The wizard assured the the giant that he would find them, so the giant headed back to his home. The wizard shook his head. The giant isn't one with a lot of sense. Unlike you. You knew the bartender poisoned your drink, but you did a good job of dribbling it down your chin. Sarge shook his head. I didn't know for sure. I suspected. The wizard sighed and continued his story. He finally met up with a group of 7 gnomes, and they had gone to see the Green Witch, and things seemed better. He helped them by making sticks into brooms, and they flew to near where their village was. But it was still out of phase. So they tried to find the gnomes who disassembled the portal. Only the portal was mostly intact. It was only missing 1 talisman. Sarge shook his head. He motioned to the books and told the wizard he knew where to set up a portal, but they needed 6 talismans, and they only had 1. We have the other 5, stated the wizard. I magically made a duplicate, and I could do that again, but finding that location again will be harder, as the magical paths don't stay as long here. He then explained to Sarge how he had magically seen a trail of the gnomes that entered the portal, and he thought that 7 or 8 had entered, and gnomes weren't supposed to be here in this world because it was too dangerous for them to be here. Sarge wanted to know why he didn't know a precise number, and the wizard told him that was because one trail seemed older than the other 7. Sarge surmised that Ikani had gone twice, so that's what it was. Then he asked about the we. The wizard said the 7 gnomes were with him. Then the wizard asked Sarge if he knew anything about what was happening, and Sarge said he didn't know. So the wizard explained about the elementals and how hiding the elementals here connected their worlds. He told that right now it seemed like one world was at night while the other was at day, but it would shift in a line as it had done over the previous decades. However, if the elementals weren't able to reestablish their rule, then the High Lord would be able to create his own portals and come through once times aligned this time. That would cause chaos in both worlds. Sarge was a bit angry, but he contained himself and asked why the parents of the elementals would risk both worlds. The wizard said it wasn't a choice the parents felt like they had to do what was best for their people so that their people could survive. Besides, if the High Lord destroyed their world, it would still affect this world and all other parallel universes. Sarge momentarily closed his eyes and briefly shook his head to himself. He briefly thought of what the medium just told him about parallel universes. He still didn't understand, because he never delved into any of that stuff. He just knew the medium was a reliable source with many of their investigations. Some of my best people are there to help. What do you require of me? The wizard mentioned that Sarge said he knew where to set up a portal, so they needed to gather the gnomes and set up the portal, and he made Sarge promise that if they weren't able to bring all the talismans with them, that he would gather them and keep them safe. Sarge agreed. Then he and the wizard left in his patrol car. He had Lieutenant Stellars follow so they could fit all 14 gnomes. They arrived at the warehouse and set up the portal. In a way, Sarge was sad to see Ikani go. Somehow he felt like he was supposed to get Alex and Michael's back when Ikani left, but he couldn't reasonably explain why he felt like that. The warehouse managers did disable the cameras while they set up the portals till after the gnomes and wizards left. The one security officer was curious, but he just gave the wizard a message to pass to Dawsner from Dawsner's mother. The whole group of 14 gnomes and one wizard went through the portal. Sarge waited, but the portal didn't disappear. He couldn't see it, but he had tested it a couple times by tossing in a stick. But the sticks disappeared each time. So he gathered the 6 talisman and then left the warehouse. When he got back to the station, he loaded up the books and took them back to Aunt Stelnar's house. After that, he called it a day. The wizard's visit had been emotionally draining. He didn't know how to protect citizens from the High Lord. If the High Lord and his men came through the portal, he just had to hope that Alex and Michaels could handle their end of things. There was a knock on the door, and Alex found the bellboy with a tray. She quickly gathered her breakfast tray from yesterday, and they exchanged trays. She thanked him and shut the door. She didn't know what she would do today, and she wondered about Michaels. She lifted the lid on the tray and breathed in all the wonderful scents. Then she sat on the little couch and closed her eyes. She wanted to try to do the spell again for the clothes for Michaels. She felt like that was the least she could do. But as she was saying the spell, she felt panicked thoughts. I appreciate, but no, don't. I burned my other clothes. I'm wearing a dead man's clothes that a wizard has changed. Alex pushed her eyebrows together. She remembered that when she let go of the spell, her hands felt hot or felt a burning sensation. Then she received, Alex, are you there? I'm new to this. Alex thought, I'm here. Are you Michaels? Yes and no. I'm Michaels, but Wizard Pelcom changed me into a boy named Biznet. I'm heading back to Solmner. You won't believe what I learned. Alex got a rush of information, and the information thoroughly perplexed her at first. But then things started making sense. Michaels picked up her wand. The gnome returning Sarge to their world only said Sarge didn't belong. Alex, are you there? We're out of Sisisnar now. Will you be okay? Alex looked at her tray of food. She thought, I'm fine. I have money. I found the chancellor of my estate. Can you imagine that? Okay, let me navigate this crowd as we leave. We are connected with the best walkie-talkie units ever. Wizard Pelcom said that higher-powered magic users can tap into her thought conversation, but hopefully we'll learn to feel that. They thought their goodbyes, and Alex started eating her food. Maybe she would try to go to the library again today. Wizard Coloni and the 14 gnomes with him stopped outside the gnome village. Wizard Coloni had helped the gnomes ride sticks magically turned into brooms. They squatted down in the bramble, and several gnomes were nervous. Wizard Coloni quieted them down. Shh! Look, a messenger. The gnomes peered out of the bushes in the bright daylight, and they saw a blackbird land on a man's arms. They were too far away to hear what the bird said to the man, but shortly afterward the man started shouting orders to pack up and leave. Wizard Coloni didn't trust the man, who he thought was Emery. He set a spell to attach a piece of dust to Emery. The dust would act like a trucker and would last 2 to 3 months if not discovered or inadvertently knocked off. They watched Emery and his men ride out of the village and head west. The gnomes were eager to call or bring their village back into this reality, but Wizard Coloni had them wait at least a few hours. Starlim and Skysy had slept on the hard ground last night. In the morning they made their way to Cashram. They had stopped far enough out that it would take around half an hour to walk there. They didn't want to chance flying in too close. And they didn't want to be too far away either, because Cashram was the closest city to the High Lord's fortress. As they got within the sight of the city, both had their heart rates increased significantly. It seemed like there were troops marching into the city this morning because there were lines of men in the dark colors of the High Lord, and they had the long battle axes and swords and shields. Some rode horses. Starlam and her sister could not turn around without raising suspicion, so they paused to let the lines of men enter before them. They were too nervous to separate. And they saw the men hanging wanted posters. The posters had the drawing of Alexandria on them. When they saw that, they glanced at each other. They were cousins of Alexandria's parents, and they looked similar. They each said this spell to slightly alter their appearance, but nothing drastic in the crowded streets. The two sisters went down the street that the other three elementals had gone down, and they saw a man sweeping the steps. Both knew right away that the man was a wizard. He made a few inconspicuous motions to them, so both headed down the dirt street to the old grain mill. They both looked around before they slipped inside. Everyone seemed nervous, with the High Lord's men marching through the whole city. So either it wasn't a normal occurrence or their tyranny was already very bad. Starlam felt the High Lord's men would head to Tanglevast next. After a unit headed past the mill, the man entered and he put a finger to his lips. His wife slipped inside and cast an illusion spell on the doorway so the man could get the witches in the cellar door. The witches hurried along the corridor behind the man until they came to a large chamber. A man in the chamber jerked awake, and he looked startled. The other two men in the chamber roused from sleep as well. "You have them?" exclaimed Starlam. "What miracle!" "Shh," said the man sharply. "My magic has faded. I'm glad you've come." And then he spoke to them in whispers, and they formed a plan for each witch to lead a man through the old tunnels to his city or kingdom, so they could start the shields from there. And he would help Trakant here. Started Trakant in a low voice. "My buddies and I want to stay together." "Not possible," said the man. He looked back at the witches. "We can coordinate with the old systems, or we can try to participate or practice sending and receiving thoughts. I think the wishing wells are too dangerous to use at this point. And who knows about the fourth and fifth elementals? The gnomes don't reason well with us, but Three Shields will..." Starlam interrupted. "Alexandria is here as well, and from what I know, she is in Sisisnar, so she will start the shield there." The man sighed in relief. "Ah, that is good. Hers is the most important one. She has blood, so hopefully we can think directly with her, but Chancellor Balcora has contacted me, trying to get someone to open the tunnels to get her back to her hotel room." "Then she is among the people," said the man. "She will be spotted." "Excuse me," interrupted Trakant. "What is going on?" Skysy smiled at him. "A lot has happened. My niece, Alex, came through the portal, but the gnomes didn't keep her. One of the gnomes came to the world where you elementals were raised, and he got me to come. The High Lord's men are putting up posters of her right now, even in this city." Trakant glanced to his friends. The man placed a hand on his arm. "Don't worry. You are among friends, and we will help you. But there are things we cannot do. We cannot activate the shields. You, the elementals, have to do that. There are 5 shields. You and your buddies, as you call them, must split up. If you all stay here, we will only be able to activate 1 shield." "4 does sound better than 1, stated Dowsner. Trakant glanced between the wizard and his 2 buddies. They huddled together for a few minutes, and then Trakant said to the wizard, "Could you teach us to send and receive thoughts amongst ourselves? We would feel better splitting up if we could do that." Starlam walked over to the desk where Trakant had been when she entered. She flipped the book closed and looked at the cover. She flipped it back open and turned a few more pages. She handed the book to Truck Ant. You were almost to that part. Truck Ant took the book and sighed. Reading all this just made it that much more unbelievable. There were moments when he doubted that he made a tree grow, or that he flew on a broom. He read through the passage, and then the three walked off to practice. And the wizard said he would go back to his house and prepare some bundles for their travels through the tunnels to the other shields. Starlim looked at her sister. Are you ready to do this? I don't think either of us knew why you were here so early, but this seems like it, Skysy said. I'm ready. I remember a lot about the tunnels. Good, because you will be going in the tunnels under the High Lord's area, stated Starlim. Skysy nodded, and then they both sat to wait for the wizard to return and the three elementals to send thoughts to each other. Before Alex opened the door to her room to go out, she thought to herself that maybe she should change herself. She found the spell when she had undone the horse form on Calvord. She didn't want to change to an animal, especially not if she wanted to go to the library. Alex thought through her conversation with Michaels. The wizard had changed Michaels into a young boy. So Alex thought about the girl that had been with the family ahead of her that checked into the hotel. Alex remembered some of the spells the witch Eleanor was trying to get her to say, and then she looked at the paper again. She suddenly realized that Eleanor wanted her to change into something like maybe a mouse or a bug. She went through the words again that she could remember and compared them to the spell on the page and in the double diary that Michaels had found for her. Alex felt like she knew the words to change into and to change back, so she just needed to figure out words to change to a young girl. She didn't worry about the clothes because she could change those separately if need be. Alex walked in front of the mirror and held up her wand. She suddenly knew how to unglimmer the wand. She did, and she cast the spell. She was very careful to remember the words so she could undo things. Alex looked in the mirror as she cast the spell, and she saw her straight, light brown hair turn more auburn and start to curl into ringlets. Her hair usually went to her mid-back. Now it was down to her waist. Alex had looked down at the hair, and she didn't immediately realize that she was shrinking in size. She looked up, and instead of looking in the mirror, she was eye level with the water basin. Her eyes went up to the mirror. She turned around to see if she could find another mirror in her room. She found a full-length mirror, and what she saw astounded herself. Her clothes had changed too, but they were nicer than the clothes the girl had been wearing. Alex didn't know if the girl's clothes had been traveling clothes or what she could afford, but it didn't matter. The biggest issue at the moment was no bosom, so no place to hide her money. Then she remembered that a small pouch came with an outfit she purchased. The pouch would just hang at her wrist. It wouldn't match her clothes, but Alex didn't worry. She did place a glamour on the wand before she turned it back into a piece of paper. Alex listened at the door before she slipped out. She didn't think this world had cameras, and that was good, but she didn't want people to see which room she exited. No one was in the hall. As she headed past the receptionist briefly looked up and then went back to her embroidery. Alex felt better once she was on the street, and she headed to the library. She hadn't filled out the paperwork to get her library card, but then again, she didn't look like the same person. As she entered, she saw a throng of children about her size and a taller person that was probably their teacher, who was checking them in. The teacher looked around her group and counted everyone and turned back to write the number of children. Alex could not believe her luck. She wasn't sure if she could check out anything or not, but she would just read like she did the other day. The children spread out throughout the library, but they didn't go to the more adult sections or the history sections. Alex, again, didn't worry on it. Soon the same librarian came to her and asked her very quietly if she wanted the next book on her list. This startled Alex. She looked intently into the man's eyes before she briefly nodded. It wasn't long before the librarian seated her in the same chair as before, and she was reading. Alex became so immersed in what she read that it was startling when she realized a small unit of soldiers had entered the library. Her heart leapt up into her throat. She wasn't with the other children, and the one librarian recognized her. Her wide eyes looked around, and she caught sight of Chancellor Balcroy, and he inconspicuously motioned to her to go back to reading, so she did. Or at least she tried to, but she couldn't concentrate as the soldiers moved around the library. Alex read the same sentence 5 times, and its meaning didn't penetrate her mind. But she decided that she should turn the page anyway. As she turned the page, she realized that the spell did not fool these 2 men. She hoped that it fooled the soldiers. After a half an hour or so, the soldiers left the library, and the teacher with all the other children wasn't too far behind. But she counted the children, and it seemed the right number to her. Alex wondered if a child had been in the bathroom when she counted earlier, but she was glad the teacher was not looking around for her. Alex flipped back the few pages and started reading again. After Michaels, Saches, and Wizard Pelcom left Sisisnar, and after the people had dispersed, Wizard Pelcom, who currently looked like a farmer with a straw hat and overalls, handed Michaels a pen. Michaels noticed that Saches, who looked like a young boy like he did, also pulled out a pen. Wizard Pelcom said, "We couldn't fly sooner. We had to wait until we weren't with the people anymore. At least no one else is going to Sumner." Michaels looked down at the pen in his hand, and he looked up at Wizard Pelcom. He glanced at Saches, back down to the pen. The next thing he knew, Saches was holding a pitchfork, and he was straddling it. Wizard Pelcom used his wand and said his spell aloud on his pen, and his pen changed to a broom. "Brooms fly better," he said. He nodded his head to Saches. "But you use what you have. If all you have is a stick, you use it." Wizard Pelcom straddled his broom, which Michaels realized was a lot easier for him to do in the overalls, instead of the flowing robes he had on yesterday. Michaels thought of the soldiers dragging the man, and his voice caught in his throat. "I glimmer people on my clothes," said Wizard Pelcom to Michaels' unspoken question. "The spell is actually on my robes, but the spell doesn't fool higher-level magic users such as yourself. That is why I changed us today instead of using a glimmer." Michaels nodded his head to himself. He took his wand and said the spell on his pen. Then he mounted his broom. Wizard Pelcom told him that they would only fly most of the way there. Michaels understood. Sarge's wife, Christoni, knew something was up with Sarge, especially because he was interacting with the children more than was normal. After the children headed up to get ready for a bath and bed, Christoni asked Sarge what was up. She knew sometimes he wouldn't tell her things about cases, and she knew some things he couldn't talk about. But she always asked just in case. Sarge sighed and sat back in his chair. He recounted his day to his wife, and at the end he said, "My team is out there, and I can't get them supplies. I can't receive any word. I can't..." He broke off. She sat next to him and put her hand on his legs. "You told me when you first went that you could only think of coming home to me and the kids, and I'm very glad that you thought that. But it seems like now you want to go undercover and join your team." Sarge looked up into his wife's eyes. "But what could I do there? I don't know any magic. If I bring a gun, then that might alter that universe. Did I tell you that Alex's gun is here in this reality?" "Yes, actually you said that the firearms for all 3 of you were in Alex's apartment," replied Christoni. Sarge looked at her. "So I can't bring a gun there. I don't know where to buy a magic wand. I mean, I know they sell them at novelty stores, but those are just polished sticks. I wouldn't be able to test it until I'm there. He shook his head at himself. We have limited time, and I don't know how long that is. Cristone got up and patted his shoulder. Trust your team. Hold down the fort. Then she walked to the sink to start doing dishes. Sarge agreed that was the most logical thing for him to do. But he had the talismans and didn't know why. He briefly thought that maybe he should open a portal for the gnomes or the wizard or Michaels or Alex to come through. But he didn't know how to know when he would need to do that. Okay, writers, that is the end of chapter 13. Leave a comment on if you were Trakant, Sylvain, or Dowsner. Would you want your group to stay together? Or would you consent to splitting up? Leave a comment on if someone could attach a piece of dust to you and track you. How would you feel? Leave a comment on people recognizing Alex. Is that because she actually cast a glamour or glimmer instead of changing forms, or is it because of something else? Leave a comment on Sarge. Would you feel like you needed to help your team if you were Sarge? Also, leave a comment on if you're reading a book and maybe you're tired or you're distracted or you're thinking of something else. Are you always able to concentrate and pick up every word you read? Or does sometimes the meaning not go into you or the scene not go into you? You kind of fade out a little bit and you have to reread. Has that ever happened to you? Join me Tuesday for some jargon and part 37 of Your Cave. Join me Wednesday for a book club discussion of 1984. This is the book. Join me Friday for our chapter 14 of Elementals. Visit my website bymichaela.com. Read some character bios. If you read some, leave a comment on which ones you've read. All your comments will help us start conversations and build our community. Keep all comments respectful. Remember, someone else's perspective can help you with your writing. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell so we can continue to write together and other people will have a higher chance of finding this video, since your likes will push the video and the channel out to a greater audience. Thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate your participation. If you know someone who would like this video, please share it with them. This is Michaela with Write with Michaela. Bye for now.